And David, I'll let you, while you're getting that set up, the idea of tonight's conversation is high-level discussion, a look. It's obviously a public unveiling too, but there's been a lot of hard work that's gone in on the background of the facility, the campus. There's been a lot of input from frontline teammates on both sides of this, and Council, I think we've tried to keep you abreast of this. You've had 2 representatives on our committee that has been working through this. So David's here tonight to kind of say, this is where we are, and then give us some next steps as well. And Gary Smith from Reedy Financial Group's here to give us a short discussion on that as well. So David, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. In addition to, we have a representative from DLZ here if there's any other questions. But to get into this, so again, this is a presentation for you on the new fire station and public works building project. As you can see in the image here, the project location is proposed to be on the parcel, which is kind of at the northwest corner of Arshel and Broadway. As far as to kind of talk through the process of where we're at, so we've gone through a programming and schematic phase. We've started some budgeting, but we're not in a position to talk about budgets tonight. We're still working through that. And then we will go on into design development and finalize cost construction documents, etc. as we get into the actual construction of the project. So we're still very early in the process, but we have a lot of information to share tonight. The site plan, like I said, it's there at the northwest corner of Arshel and Broadway. It's a 20-acre parcel. The northern 10 acres is what we're planning on utilizing for the public works and the fire station. The southern 10 acres will be reserved for future commercial development. The site will also include the new Arshel Drive, which you can see here, and you can't see my mouse, can you? You can see the new Arshel Drive coming off the south side of the site. And then there'll be a potential signalized intersection. We're still working through that, given that the fire station is there on the corner. We believe that is going to be a need. And then we've also discussed a future trailhead at the end of the very back side, the very west side of the site. This just kind of gives you an overall perspective of what that site might look like with the fire station there on the right side. And then there would be a shared parking, and then on the left side of the site is the public works, the street department. There was a facility assessment done back in 2021 by RQAW. That site, or that study, looked at 3 different options for this project, specifically for the fire station. They talked about an option A to renovate the existing station, an option B to demolish that station and build a new one on the same site, and option C to build a new fire station on a new site. So obviously the one that we're looking at right now is option C, with building a new station on a new site. Really the reason that we're doing that is because we can combine both of the public works and the fire station on the same site. We believe that by doing that, we're going to be able to find some potential cost savings by co-locating both of those uses on one site. Some of that will be because we'll have a regional detention pond instead of having 2 different sites to have to deal with. Balancing the site with mass excavation, and then some shared amenities with security fencing, signage, landscaping, parking, etc. So we believe we're going to find some shared savings there. Some key elements that are worth noting that weren't identified in that initial report. So there was no specific site located or identified for the fire station. It didn't consider any extension of utilities. It did not obviously consider any reconstruction of any infrastructure, this being Arshel Drive. The specific programmatic needs were not really identified as well, such as the decontamination areas and the training components for the fire station. And then soft costs were excluded from that report as well. And then, of course, as you can imagine, there's no rate of inflation that was really discussed in that report, which we'll get into here in a little bit. Fire station project goals. The plan for the current future needs of the City of Greensburg Fire Department. Material and systems which are durable and low maintenance. a contemporary and forward-thinking aesthetic character that represents the city of Greensburg. We're looking at best practices of the fire station design, including operational needs and health and wellness of the firefighters. It's going to serve as an anchor for the area and provide a sense of safety, service, and stability. Flexible, we want to make sure that as we're designing that it's flexible to accommodate a change in potential future operations and building expansion. Sustainability and represents good stewards of the environment, as well as economical, feasible, and represents being a good steward of financial resources. And we're really looking at the same concepts with the street department, public works facility as well. As we looked at this and we've gone through programming of space, the existing fire station is approximately 9,451 square feet. The initial design when we started the programming came out to about 24,525 square feet. We had kind of a benchmark there. The current design that we're at right now, the schematic design, is around 21,060 square feet. So we've reduced about 3,400 square feet out of the design to date. And again, we're still working through all those options. Looking at the site plan for the fire station itself. So right now we're at 21,060 square feet. It's a 4-acre parcel of land is what we've identified. And it's a 2-story drive-through, it has drive-through apparatus bays, visitor parking. We're going to keep the baby safe haven box there at the fire station, which is currently at the existing one. We'll make sure that there's provisions for future expansion. So on the right side, you can see where there's some space there. That would accommodate for future expansion if we needed that. There's visibility from Broadway Street, which is important, and there's some exterior training space located on the north side of the site. On the first floor level, there are 4 apparatus bays. Again, these are drive-through apparatus bays. There's a decontamination area, lockers, administration area. Again, this is a fire headquarters, so there's a firehouse and headquarters in the same facility. Training room, a wellness room, a training center, which is that purple area right in the center, and then several support spaces for the admin and for the fire department. On the second floor, this will be the living quarters. There are 11 private sleeping rooms with shared restrooms. It's an open concept day, room, kitchen, and that back part. You can see, if you look here, this area right here is the day room and kitchen, dining, etc. And then there's personal lockers and storage areas as well, which are located in the middle, kind of right off that day room. Looking at some views that we've come up based upon schematic design, we have kind of leaned toward a contemporary design. There's solar shading to reduce heat gain over the apparatus bays and other areas of the building. We've tried to look at durable materials. This is, again, we're not building a 10-year project. This is a 30 and 40-year project. So we're looking at masonry, cement board, natural daylighting for the fire station. Bifold apparatus doors only on the south side, so that would be exiting. The other side, the north side of the building, are more typical overhead doors. And we're looking at economical solutions constantly as we continue through the schematic design. This is another view from basically the shared parking lot, or actually the drive coming through for the apparatus. So kind of looking to that northeast. As far as the public works building, looking at the site plan, the current building, I don't know why my mouse isn't working. The current building right here, this is a proposed maintenance building right here, and these are some storage buildings, the salt storage area, and these areas right here would be for some other maintenance issues.
Salt spreaders.
Salt spreaders, thank you. It's on a 6-acre parcel of land. The actual building itself is a pre-engineered metal building, is what's proposed there. It would have vehicle storage, vehicle maintenance, and material storage as well. The first floor of the Public Works building, the office area is about 3,000 square feet. It's a 16-person meeting room and break room. Secured tools and parts storage, as well as a partial mezzanine. There's a maintenance shop, which 4 bays, 4 22-foot bays, approximately 6,100 square feet. Heated storage, which has 7 18-foot bays and 12,600 square feet with a wash bay as well. This here shows an aerial of that looking to the northwest of that area. So that parking lot would actually be a shared parking lot with the fire station and the street department. The office maintenance building has brick wainscot. We've tried to match the facade of what the fire station will have so that we have a similar look. It'll have metal siding, dark bronze accents. Again, these are all in schematic phase, but 14-foot tall insulated overhead doors. There'll be a fence secured yard as well. Covered vehicle storage, approximately 6,000 square feet. That's the area off to the very west. And then 4 compartment salt barns, about 2,400 square feet dedicated to that. This is a view looking closer at that building, again looking to the northwest, just highlighting the wainscot in the facade of the building. A view looking at the maintenance bays, the vehicle storage areas, and then again the view of the yard with the area there. Most of that yard area is all gravel. That black area would all be paved. So looking at next steps, obviously we're here tonight. There is no, again, like the mayor said, there's really no approval here tonight that we're looking for, which is we wanted to come and present where we are today. We are going to be going into as we move in, and Reedy is here as well, but to look at bond financing. We're going to need to finalize the BOT later, which will come probably in December sometime here, and then develop the construction documents, and then establish design release and start actual construction. So if you look at that timeline here, we're probably not looking at construction until January, February of 23, after we finish bond financing and BOT. So that is all I have, unless you have any questions. And I know that we have Reedy here as well to give some presentation.
Any questions for David? I appreciate all the work you and your team, along with all of our teammates, and some of them are, with us this evening as well. And it's been a lot of work to get to this point. So
Yep.
Thank you for helping with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, so because come on up, Gary, if you want. We're not really necessarily talking about finance, but I know there will be a lot of discussion about that. So do you want to just kind of high level walk us through where we are and where we're going?
Yeah, so I'm Gary Smith with Reedy Financial Group, the city's registered municipal advisor. I had 3 points that I wanted to cover tonight, one of which would be just the financing summary, so how we're looking at securing the borrowing by December of 2022. The second point would be the funding source, where we're looking at the payments coming from, and then finally, taxpayer impact. So the first point is utilizing the building authority. So the same mechanism the city used for the city hall, we're proposing that we would use for the fire station and the DPW building as well. Lease financing closing in December of 2022. There's about 2 pages of approvals that we would have to get through before we get there, obviously, so a long way to go, this being one of the first steps in the process. The second point would be funding source. So we're currently exploring a property tax levy to fund the entire project. One of the important points, the administration conversations we've had, is ensuring this would be a tax neutral project from the beginning. So we've worked very hard over the past 12 to 18 months, I would say, in putting models together, putting together projections on overall tax rates, along with this project. So we've structured this we're proposing to structure this as a 20-year property tax bond through the building corporation. Regarding the tax impacts, there's no projected impacts on the 1% homeowners. So we're able to show all the models that we ran, no impact on 1% homeowners. Nearly all the impact from the project is a result of the 3% property taxpayers. So commercial industrial properties would be the ones essentially paying the tax as it's projected today from a tax rate perspective. Now, those are assuming very conservative projections, I would say. We're actually assuming no growth for 2023 going into pay 2024. So if the city continues to experience growth in terms of assessments just rising across the board, we're optimistic that even by 2024, by the time we actually get to the first tax levy in 2024 for principal and interest payments, that the project in its entirety, could be tax rate neutral, just with where we are here in 2022. So with that being said, that's the 3 points I wanted to cover.
Same compliment to you. Thank you for working with us and our team and being at the table. I think it's important to note that point that we are working towards a project that is tax neutral. We looked all the way back to 2020 and tried to find what that level was, and so that we could operate in that range. And that a 1%, you want to run through the classes, a 1% property is.
Apologies. Yeah, so there's, in Indiana, there's 3 types of property tax caps. So there's your 1% properties, which would be anything zoned as residential, would be 1%. So if you had a $100,000 home, for instance, barring any referendum rates, which I don't know of any here in the community, the 1% taxpayer would never pay more than $1,000 if they had a $100,000 assessment. So similar sentiment applies to 2%, so that would be your agricultural properties, your rentals. They would never pay more than 2% of their assessed value. And then finally 3% would be your commercial industrial, so they're capped at 3%. Here in Greensburg, our rate's about $2.52 right now. So for that reason, nearly every single 1% property, residential property in the community is at the tax cap. So they're not really exposed to any fluctuations in rates necessarily. They are exposed to fluctuations in their assessment, not their tax rates. 2%, that same story holds true, and that's why I said earlier that 3% are really the one that are being impacted by this, because the rate's not in excess of $3.
If the project doesn't happen, the council votes not to do it, will tax rates go down for residential, for 1% property owners? They will not pay less.
Yeah, so the important point to note there is, not to be misleading, property taxes just kind of everywhere are rising. But in communities like Greensburg, where nearly every 1% property homeowner is at the tax cap, kind of regardless of what rates do, their bills are going to go up because their assessments are going up. So it's a great point. Regardless of what the city elects to do with tax rates, assessments are rising. So if you had a $100,000 home with a $1,000 tax bill at the 1% tax cap, if your AVs went to $150, for instance, your tax bill would go to $1,500. That is true regardless of what the city elects to do with rates, because we're in excess of the $2.50. A lot to unpack there, but.
And I know Gary and I and Kristen are working on a public information piece as well, that once we have numbers, we will be putting out in conjunction with each other. Other questions for Gary? Thank you. Stephen Kromkowski, who is our architect of record on the project, is also here if anybody has questions for him. Okay. As mentioned, there isn't really an official need, but I would appreciate if there would be at least a voice vote or voice of support to allow these individuals who are working on our behalf to continue with the project. Is that reasonable? Are we supportive of continuing the project until the next official requirements for the bonds and everything?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Council, that's all I had on my agenda. And Jamie, you wanted to talk about our previous meeting real quick.
Yeah, no, and I guess we could get into this when we do the Board of Works, but at the Board of Works meeting tonight, we had, I just want to make sure, we have basically 35 stormwater appeals. We had 2 last month, so in the 2 months since we've initiated the ordinance, basically we've had 37 stormwater appeals. I guess what I'm asking is maybe we could get a small work group together. I'd volunteer to be one of those people if you wanted, or it could be a couple other council members, maybe Ron, and at least we could take a look at the stormwater ordinance. We could address some of the issues that came up or some of the appeal reasons that came up, and at least take a look at it and determine whether or not we want to consider making some changes to it or leave it as is, but at least. Right, so we only have 2 council members on it, but I'm saying I'll volunteer to be one, or if 2 other people want to do it, then I'm just making that option up there, so. But I think we ought to put together a small work group and at least assess it and then make a recommendation to the council.
And just to throw my 2 cents on that, I certainly agree with Jamie. I think that would be beneficial, which is a natural growth process of any ordinance. When you do something that large and that impactful, you start with what you know you can do. You start to see the kinks. You start to see the issues. You hammer those out, and that's how the process works. One thing I would suggest from your legal counsel perspective is a more defined appeal process, and potentially a separate appellate review committee, so that basically by the time it gets to the Board of Works, they're either going up or down. This is kind of the way you do taxes and property tax assessments and all of those sorts of abatements and those sorts of things. I do think that there is some nuances to that ordinance that could be further fleshed out and that we would not have known about when we drafted it until you kind of start to live in it. I mean, I didn't know that my house was going to creak that way until I lived in my house and knew that's when it was going to creak, kind of thing. But I certainly think that there is some tweaking to that. I also think a more defined, a more specified definition of improvement is probably warranted, just because that's something that has kind of repeatedly came up. And keeping in mind, 12 of those were like one person. So I mean, you say, yeah, we had 35, 38, or whatever it was, but 12 of them were one guy that just had a bunch of property. That's my 2 cents. Having gone through that process, I would certainly support Jamie's request for a task force or work group to look at that a little bit further.
I'll be happy to work with Jamie on that committee.
I suggest you also put somebody from Board of Works on it, besides Jamie.
We can find someone else to add to that.
Ron, where's Ron on that? Sorry. Do you mind maybe setting that up for us, or, sorry, then we can agree on a date and time to get together.
Any other comments or questions on that? Okay. So there we go. The rest of the Board of Works update, Jimmy, please.
Mark Kloster Camper came. We approved Josh to sign a contract with IDEM basically for the Park Road project, not till 2027, but we've got to start moving forward on some of that. Nate, Fire Chief, came. We approved making our ladder truck pink for the month of October. I think it's going to be pink by the end of the week for Fall Festival. It will be easily removable. It's not like a permanent structure, but it's basically to support breast cancer awareness. And so I think part of it's already done, or a majority of it's done. So it should be finished soon. We made conditional offers of employment to 2 candidates for firefighter positions. And then we made a modification to the reimbursement agreement for new firefighters. Currently, the agreement is basically they have to pay back up to $5,000 if they leave after we're hired within the first 3 years, and it's based on a prorated amount per month. We changed that to 8,000 based on the cost of just gearing, putting them in gear, training, all the other things we have to do just to hire them and bring them in. So we changed that basically to $8,000. And then Chief also talked about the chili supper. Chief McNeely came, and we basically made an offer, conditional offer of employment for one applicant for the police department. We basically, well, I don't know that we didn't approve the purchase of 3 SUVs and a car, but basically we approved the chief to basically apply to get costing, to get pricing for 3 SUVs and a car. And then the other approval will probably come next month. And then the chief talked to us about the Public Safety Night at the Fall Festival. Ron came, we did openings for, I want to make sure, proposal openings for the game pad at North Park, and we basically approved conditional offer to Dave O'Mara based on, there were several conditions in there, but based on their bid for that project. Closeout of City Hall bond, so we approved 3 different projects on this, basically in addition to the City Hall project. With that bond, basically adding some gypsum board and glass projects, signage, and then landscaping. So a total of, what was it, $125,000 on that project. We approved the purchase of a GIS truck to Hubler for, was it $31,040 or maybe I double check my numbers.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
$31,040 or 31,400. Sorry. And then we discussed the stormwater fee appeals that we just discussed.
Rick, Main Street?
Main Street. Oaks here. Did hire a new director, Rose Cronley. She was supposed to start, what, this week or roughly this
2
week?
weeks. Yeah, she's back now.
And then a new administrator, Allison Beck. She started a couple weeks ago. Then the Friends of Freddie, or Fred, they figured they had 3,000 to 4,000 people show up. They had a real good turnout. Food trucks are figuring 1,500, so you double that. So that was a real good program for them. They're going to have a beer garden up at the Fall Festival, and they're starting to work on the holiday walk. So that's overview of that.
Thank you. And Plan Commission?
We had no new business this month, so we did not have a plan commission meeting.
Anything from the EDC?
My schedule did not allow me to go this month.
Mine either. If I had anything from solid waste? Yes. And we are waiting on review of the recycling contract.
I am working through the recycling contract. I'll just be honest, it reads weird, so I'm trying to fix it.
Daryl, anything from the redevelopment commission?
We agreed to support the new inclusion park financially, as did the county. Just an editorial remark, this inclusion park is going to be a great thing for this community. There's some, I saw on social media, there's going to be more information coming out, I'm assuming this week or next, but it said very soon, so it may be right now, I don't know. And then we also entered into a contract with Beacon Homes and on the new housing addition in the TIF district just off of Veterans Way.
Thank you. I don't have anything on my other boards. Anything else, board? If not, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Vida. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll see everybody soon.